let's talk optical illusion. What is an optical illusion? It's something that happens when your eyes fool you. When you see something and you think it's one thing, but it's actually something entirely else. Some of them you're probably all familiar with. If you've ever been driving along a road on a hot day and you look down the road and you see what seems to be like water on the highway in front of you, but when you get there, there is no water. That's an optical illusion. But there's a lot more, and there's a lot of optical illusions that we use in our day-to-day life that we don't even think about. Now, if you look at the screen, you'll see a picture with some French writing under it. And for those of us who don't read French, including me, it translates into, "This is not a pipe." Let's take a minute and pause. What do you think about that? Is this a pipe or isn't this a pipe? If it's not a pipe, then what is it? This is the question that was posed by the artist, and it's confused a lot of people. So, what do you think? The classic answer to this visual riddle is that this is a painting of a pipe, or rather now it's a digital representation projected over the internet onto your screens of a painting of a pipe. Originally, the expert explanation would have been, this is actually random splashes of paint on a canvas. It's not actually a pipe. Our brains look at it and we see a pipe, but this is every bit an optical illusion, just as much as if you were walking across the desert and you saw a palm tree waving over an oasis. But this is an optical illusion that we have all culturally agreed is a pipe because it is a representation of a pipe. So when we say this is a pipe, we know, and everybody else knows because we've agreed, that what we're actually saying is this is a visual representation of a pipe. Now this is very simple. It's pretty one-dimensional. You look at it, you're not seeing any real 3D illusion. It does look, it's not perfectly flat, but it is pretty much all on the same plane. Then you get into things like when you're looking at a landscape and you can see mountains in the distance, and if the perspective is well done, the mountains appear to be very large but very distant. This is part of the same joke. Now, here's the joke, and I want to see if you can explain it to me. I was wondering why the frisbee kept getting bigger, and then it hit me. Who can explain that? And what does it have to do with the pipe and a picture of a landscape and all of that? And of course, the answer to that is that because we live in a three-dimensional world. Please excuse me, my kitten just cut off my recording, so I had to start again. But we actually live in a four-dimensional world. But we live in a three-dimensional world where things have width and length and depth. But we can only perceive things in 2 dimensions. But by moving around things, we can perceive the 3rd dimension by putting together all that 2-dimensional information that our eyes can see. For instance, if we see a square and we move around it and we see another square, we know that we're looking at a cube. And painters and artists have learned to use optical illusions to recreate this 3-dimensional space. Now, when we say the frisbee was getting bigger, what we mean is we saw that the frisbee the 2-dimensional section of the frisbee that we could see appeared to be getting bigger. And our brains know to translate that as the frisbee getting closer to us. And if your reactions are particularly poor, like mine were when I was growing up, the frisbee smacks you in the face and all of your friends get a good laugh. So that's what that joke means. And that is essentially how all these visual brain games work. They are taking advantage of the fact that we can really only see in 2 dimensions. And using that to trick your brain into thinking you see something. That is how pretty much all painted or drawn, basically all 2-dimensional art works. And that's how a lot of magicians' tricks works. So let's move on and look at some optical illusions, some logic games, and a bunch of fun brain games.